Thank you for joining us today for another exclusive interview sponsored by Immovit. Help your horses reach their maximum potential with Immovit's line of natural homeopathic products. I'm your host today, Arabian Triple. Today we have the honor of speaking with Dianne Waldron, the owner of the legendary Rosebrook Farm. With over 3 decades of excellence in Arabian racing, Dianne has bred and trained some of the greatest champions, including Triple Crown winner TH Richie and the record-breaking Arabian Triple. From Dubai to the United States, her horses have dominated on an international scale, earning over 20 Darley Awards and setting the standards for Arabian racing worldwide. Stay tuned as we explore her remarkable journey, insights into breeding, and plans for the future of Rosebrook's legacy. So Dianne, first of all, great to have you here, of course.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your journey with Rosebrook Farm, especially with Alanud, and what made her such an exceptional racehorse across, 2 continents?
Well, it's hard to know where to start. And I hate to tell you, but I've been doing this for 4 decades, not 3.
Oh, right.
And I have a lot more horses I could name that are record holders and champions over in UAE and in the United States. I mean, most recently would be RB Byrne. No, RB Rich Like Me, and RB Money to Burn. They're both track record holders as well as group winners. And then, of course, lately there's RB Kingmaker. And, I could go on and on with the horses. I mean, there's many of them. And to answer your question, it's hard to know where to start. I started out just being crazy about a horse as long as I can remember, and didn't have a horse. Nobody around me had a horse, but I just was crazy about horses. And so every chance I got, I would get near one. And I finally was able to get a horse. It was just an old gray mare. And I loved her, rode her. Then I finally talked my father into breeding her to an Arabian stallion of all things. And I got started being interested in Arabian horses. So at that point, I've just been crazy about Arabian horses ever since. And I've done a little bit of everything with horses over my life. And the most recent of which would be, other than racing, before that would be endurance riding. And so with those athletes, my backyard endurance horses, I took them when Arabian racing, parimutuel Arabian racing first came to Florida. I took them to Ocala and ran all my endurance horses, and they all won. Wow. They each won their race they were in. One of the most notable of which is a mare that was 7 years old, and there were no older mares involved, so she had to run against colts her whole career. Wow. And what I'm getting at is it has just been an evolution in my life of picking athletes, picking conformation. And an endurance horse, a good one, is going to be about as sound as anything you're going to find, because they do everything on their own. Just you're allowed to use water, but you don't use anything else, and they go 100 miles in one day. So it just seemed like a natural fit. Sure. And then we had so much fun racing those that I decided I wanted to try to get a 3-year-old. So what I'm getting at is it just evolved into, and in the 3-year-old group that I was able to get was 2 horses, one called ZT Alibaba, which I think most everybody knows that one. He's one of the finest broodmare sires ever and was an amazing racehorse also, and track record holder. And then his counterpart was a horse called Count Gallagher. And those were my 3-year-olds. And that's where it really kicked off, because then you get really hooked and you just keep on trying to move on up. I don't know how else to say it, except I was work every day for my living, and I didn't have the money to go out there and buy the best racing lines there are. So I just ran my athletes. And back then, and even now especially, people would really laugh at you to think you can run a straight Egyptian horse and do anything. But that's what ZT Alibaba was.
Wow.
And he just had the power, the heart, the confirmation, the size, and breeding him into using him as a stallion and breeding him to mares. I was able to get a couple of better mares, more race bred mares, and breeding him to the old, what I call the old fashioned, but tried and true Sam Tier
Mm.
lines. And then it just evolved and it came forward to the point that today, Alibaba's grandson, TH Richie, is the best broodmare sire that I can think of.
Wow.
And so I'm just saying it's just been an evolution of keep being patient and breeding what I call breeding up the lines that I already own,
Wow.
and just keeping your eyes open and pay attention to what's winning, how it's winning. Is it consistently winning? Is it an accident that it won this race? I mean, I don't want that. I want the consistent athlete with a heart. And I keep trying to cross that on something that I think is better than what I've got.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just the whole story in a nutshell. I really didn't go out and buy a horse to race.
Mhm.
I've bred them all.
Fair enough.
So, it's just, I mean, I did that with thoroughbreds and actually did well with having some really good thoroughbreds, won the Amsterdam, won some other stakes, and but there's nothing as much fun as these Arabians.
For sure. What an amazing journey. Wow. So with achievements, Dianne, like you mentioned, TH Richie's historic Triple Crown win, RB Byrne, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan Jewel Crown victory. You mentioned breeding is very important. What kind of breeding decisions, led to these successes, to these amazing successes?
I don't know what to say as to what kind of decision. I just keep my eyes on the horizon.
Hmm.
I'm always looking for new lines that might show me that they might be better
Okay.
than what I've got, but they've got to be better than what I've got if I'm going to breed to them.
Fair enough.
It's just that simple.
Okay.
And so, and with the evolving situation with Arabian racing in the world,
Sure.
as long as I've been in it, I've been able to just kind of stay right there on the crest of the curve that moving forward. For example, back when I got started, the popular lines for racing Arabian was Polish.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
It was Polish. Those are the ones that were considered the best racing lines in the world.
Wow.
And they probably were back then.
True.
But we were able to come along and do great with our straight Egyptian horse.
For sure.
And the mare I talked with Jamazna, which was the mare that first ran in that first race that I'm talking about,
Mhm.
and won against the Stakes Colts at Tampa Bay Downs in her third start. And
Wow.
her lines are still in my program.
Okay.
And that is not racing lines,
True.
but she's an athlete and she's proved it all the way through. Her latest and most renowned foal has been Dance With Me BW, who was an amazing group winner and race mare for several years. Now, 5 years from her retirement, she has a winner already in her first foal in Texas. And I'm just saying that these lines go way back and they're not all fancy racing bloodlines. but they're athletes and they have heart.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I can't think of a better way to find an athlete with a heart than an endurance horse. However, now things have reversed a little because endurance horses need to be 5 years older.
Oh, wow.
And so the race horses, I, of course, run them at 3.
Sure.
So I've many times ridden an ex-race horse on the endurance trail. I have many times ridden a currently racing racehorse on the endurance trail.
Oh,
I've hauled a horse from Delaware Park to the Old Dominion and ridden him right there for 50
mhm.
miles and took him back to Delaware and raced him some more. So it's really just been a fun journey of trial and error. And thank God above, who is no doubt the reason for all my success. It's worked out most of the time. So I'm just don't know how else to explain it except I'm just so blessed. And I
Excellent.
love it. It's my passion.
For sure. For sure. I can see that.
Yes, it's definitely been a lifelong passion.
Definitely. Wow.
And I've tried, like I say, I've done a whole lot of things with a whole lot of sports and horse racing. Among others, I forgot we bred one of our horses that was full brother to many stakes horses.
Hmm.
He he was so sweet, so beautiful, so relaxed. He seemed to want to run forever, but not quick. And we put him on the sport horse world, and he's now the winningest sport horse in history.
Oh,
A horse
wow.
called Oration.
That
Matter of
is
fact, they've even created a Briar horse in his honor. That's how
oh,
good he is. But he's just perfection. He's a beautiful bay with 4 high whites and a blaze, and he's just sweet as he could be. I called him Ferdinand the Bull because he was so sweet. And I just knew he was too good to just give up on.
sure.
So that's what I did. And that's why I'm saying we've done so many things and had so much fun. A lot of the horses that we've had on the track have gone on the endurance trail, and a lot of them now recently have gone on the sport horse trail, especially since Oration. And they just win. They win immediately off the track. I mean, they go from the
Incredible.
racetrack straight to the show ring, and they get on them, and they within 3 weeks they're competing and winning. They have great minds, they have great talent, they have great conformation, and their owners love them. And it makes me so happy that they got such a wonderful next career.
For sure. For sure. And among all of your, horses' achievements, especially, from Dubai, Kahalai Classic to the drinkers of the win stakes victories, which wins hold the most emotional significance for you, and maybe why?
Oh my, that's hard because I'll never forget my first race at Tampa Bay Downs
Hmm.
with this mare I'm talking about. And I had a borrowed bridle on her because I didn't even own any racing tack because I was an endurance person. I bought one win picture. So that tells you I didn't appreciate it nearly as much as I should have, meaning that win. When I look back, though, I realize that every race that I win seems to be more dear. But to answer your question, I guess one of the biggest thrills would be when Frivolous won the Kahila Classic. A little gelding from the US that was Horse of the Year here went over there, and we were there to watch him. And I was just a nervous wreck, thinking against all these big, strapping, huge racehorses owned by people all from everywhere. I was really nervous about that. And that was a thrill because it was an unexpected win, and he
Wow.
won just easy, just by many lengths going away. I just That's one that's a big one for me.
I can
Of course,
imagine.
TH Richie, all 3 of his Triple Crown races, but especially the third one,
Hmm.
would be a a wonderful memory to see that big, beautiful horse come barreling down the stretch, just won it so easy. And then, of course, recently, these two sisters that I've got that have been running 1-2 or winning boys and girl the same night. Those are a thrill. Um, they're all a thrill. Another thrill today. I just was told that a horse I bred named RB Moneymaker won a grade 2 today at Maidan.
Wow.
And I mean, I have a lot of them that are running, and they're all, the owners are happy. And I'm so happy for the owners, and I'm so happy for the program. I breed every horse as if I'm going to run it myself. And if there was enough racing in the United States, I probably wouldn't ever sell any of them, because that's what I like to do, is race.
Definitely. What
I
moment?
know I rambled on, but I don't know if that answered your question or not. There's
It
so
did.
many,
It did.
so many thrills
I'm gonna
that I
have a
can
tough
tell you
question
about.
for you
RB
next as well.
Byrne, RB Byrne winning that first, the first Jewel Crown race, and quite honestly won the second one too the next year,
Definitely.
and was disqualified. And that's controversial, but point is, what a horse, what a horse. And it's coming on through in that same mare line. It keeps on happening. It just does. And I don't know what to say except I'm blessed.
Mhm.
I
Definitely.
can't take credit for being that smart. I just love it, and I see things, and I just choose different horses to try, and it works out.
It's amazing.
I
It is your
mainly
passion
look
and you're
to
making it
find
work.
the athlete.
Incredible.
It has to start with the athlete,
True.
and then the athlete that's consistent. And of course, the consistency means they've got some heart, a lot of heart too. And that is kind of where it's at. Then if they happen to look pretty besides, they're always handsome. But, like Dance With Me, for example, has a beautiful Arabian head and face, and her daughter now, Dance Party, it's beautiful. I mean, it's like that first race that I won with the borrowed race bridle. The lady that owned the bridle was in the win picture with me. And I said, golly, this mare, she's not a Arabian typey. And she told me, honey, there's only beautiful horses in the winner's circle. And I never forgot that too, because
Wow.
she's so right. And as I said, I enjoy each and every win. I appreciate it more every single time, because I don't take them for granted. I never take them for granted. I'm very grateful
Wow.
to all the team at Rosebrook and at Torres Racing Stable, and over the years, Nunley Racing Stable, Phil Saxer. Before that, there's just been years and years of
Of course. So
of
many.
doing this, and without the right people taking care of your horses, they're at a disadvantage, a grave disadvantage.
Definitely.
So I try to be careful about all the details.
I'd like to talk a bit more technical, as someone who has bred winners for both US and international Arabian racing. What are the key physical and temperamental differences you look for when, breeding Arabian race horses compared to maybe show or endurance Arabians?
Well, for endurance, for racing, I mean, legs,
Hmm.
you better have some good legs under them if you want a career for the horse.
Sure.
And of course, shoulders. I like a horse with a long neck. I mean, you just want a good balanced horse with good legs. And temperament, you you really don't want, if you can help it, you don't want one that's very high high strung is one thing, but nervous is another, because there's a big difference. I mean, you can have a horse that's high strung and ready to go, but it
Mhm.
isn't because it's nervous, it's because it wants to.
Sure.
And then there's some that are just nervous and wash out and they're, you know, drenched in sweat. And fortunately, I've had years enough to, most of these horses that are running now, I owned their mamas and their grandmas and maybe even further back. So I know them. I know their dispositions from way back when. And
Mhm.
the disposition comes through. It's born in them. It is really amazing
Wow.
that you can count on certain characteristics of their actions, of their how they hang out, how they don't how they walk, how they sling their head, how they just you just know them and it comes through in pedigree. You know, if you if you better have a good mare,
True.
you better have a good mare, and preferably one that's been a winner. Although I've raised one from a backyard horse that never raced. So again, there's no particular secret to it. I think that's why it's called the sport of kings, because buy you can't buy the win. You know, the horse has to want to do it and give you everything he's got. And my goal has always been to try to breed one that can go short or long. I'm particularly proud of TH Richie because he held a track record short, and his Triple Crown, he ran 6 furlongs in California. Then he went and ran 7 furlongs in Texas. And then he had to ship to Delaware to run 1.25 miles. And that's a lot of traveling, and that's a lot of different distances. And he's amazing. And I try to do that with all the horses. These 2 fillies that I've had this year, they can run short or long. And that's not normal.
Mhm.
Normally they're a sprinter or they're a route horse or maybe they're a miler or who knows. But in Arabians, there's not that much opportunity to put them in their class. So ideally, you want one that can do it all.
That's true. That's very true. Could you share a little bit more insights on mare lines, especially maybe looking at the dam lines that have produced your multiple Grade 1 winners?
Yes, yes. Again, we can go back to knowing the great grandmother.
Hmm.
And for example, Frigga, she's the great grandmother of um, some of my, she's the grandmother of, well, she's the mother of the filly, that mare that I named French, just Frynch. And
Okay.
French has produced French Broad, Rich Friend. I mean, a lot of daughters that have produced more Grade 1 winners.
Wow.
And that line keeps coming through, no matter what you breed her to, but no matter what stallion,
Mhm.
pretty much she's produced champions. That same thing holds true to another mare, Rich Kinka, who has produced many foals. They're nearly everyone a winner, nearly everyone a group winner. And they're just and she's the dam of these 2 great fillies that are running right now. But she's produced, she just consistently produces runners.
That's amazing.
And so we go on into her pedigree now. Now I'm breeding some daughters. Another one would be a mare called Bernie G, and she produced RB Byrne,
Okay.
and she's produced Torch, who was a really good runner over there in the UAE prior to Byrne, and she produced Feel Feel the Byrne, who is a Darley champion here in the United States. She's undefeated filly here. Now she has her first baby that fit her. Now
Oh,
Bernie G's grandbaby is a 2-year-old, her first foal, and will run as a 3-year-old. And I mean, and another one called Madeline Kate, that's one, and some sisters, a sister over in UAE. And I'm just saying, a good mare just seems to be able to keep on producing champions just about no matter what she's bred to.
Incredible.
And those 3 lines have been the predominant ones. Now I'm just starting with Dance With Me, and now her baby dance party, and she has a couple of more coming, but that one I'm sure is going to join the ranks of one of those really premier broodmares in the Rosebrook band. But you know, I've proven so many bloodlines, and I enjoy starting with something new and trying to make a name for it.
For sure.
I've proven many stallions over the years, and I'm very, very honored to say that the great R.B. Rich like me is going to stand at Rosebrook Farm for 2025.
Excellent.
And back where he was born. And so and I just love him. He's always been special. He's the kindest horse in the world to be so talented. He's just he's an amazing horse. And he goes to Friga. He's out of Rich Friend. Rich Friend is out of French, and French is out of Friga.
Oh, wow.
So you see the generations. I have generations of horses
That's incredible.
that are proven over and over and over. And then there's French Dude that won over there pretty big, and RB French Dude. And he's out of another daughter of French, who's Friga. And as I say, now I have a daughter of Rich Friend who has produced a daughter who won her first out this year in Texas. So we're getting down into great grandma. I mean, but it keeps coming through. It just keeps coming through.
Wow,
It is pretty amazing to me when you look at bloodlines. You better be looking really close at the mare.
True.
That's my opinion. I mean, there are some stallions that are not as good as others, for sure, but there's mares that aren't as good as others. Ideally, you'll get a really great stallion crossed on a really great mare. But if you have to have one or the other, I'll pick the mare every time.
As Arabian racing has become more internationally competitive, how has your approach to breeding evolved, over the course of 4 decades in the sport?
Yes, it has. Quite frankly, when the French bloodlines were first being introduced to us in America, I took notice immediately because of the way they looked. Again, looking at conformation and their structures. And I knew there was something really special there. And so I started crossing my backyard horses on French horses and was able to acquire a la Cronois at part interest in him and stood him at Rosebrook, and we won a lot with his babies. And then I was able to get Kalinda Loop, who produced TH Richie, and then TH Richie has continued to produce. And then there's just Basek Al Khalidea is another one that I've proven. Matter of fact, his son Kingmaker, RB Kingmaker, is going to run in the Jewel race coming up, and I think he's a multiple Group 1 winner. And we have a lot of Rosebrook has. I have a lot of horses running very, very well. And this past year in 2023, the percentage of winners to starters, we were the leading owner in the world.
Wow.
I sent you that source so you can look it up.
Sure. That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible to me too. It's really incredible. Over 42% winners to starters. I can't believe it. It's just amazing. Like I said, I'm just blessed.
Hmm.
But I said I handpick and make the decisions on
Sure,
every one that we breed. I don't breed the trend.
for sure.
I breed what I see that I think will improve
Long
the
term.
herd. Hmm.
Have you
And
observed?
that's what I've done from the get-go, as much as I could possibly afford to do so. And then I get carried away and breed way too many, and that's why I've sold so many. But they're all great and people are happy.
Of
And
course,
I'm so thrilled. It makes me can't be happier to see them go abroad and do well.
that is incredible story for sure. Have you observed any changes, over the course of 40 years in what makes a successful racehorse today?
Today,
Today. Hmm.
okay. Today you can look at pedigree a lot more than when I started. Back then, you still had a real shot, even
Hmm.
with a backyard horse. I would say that today it would be a little harder to
Hmm.
do that
Can imagine.
because we have been breeding now for so many years for racing. And up until then, the Poles or who had been breeding and racing, and they were known on an international basis for their racehorses. For example, Orzel,
Hmm.
Sambor. I mean, there's many, but the French people have been breeding for racing also for a long time, but it just didn't hit the international scene
Hmm.
because I believe the Polish horses were coming over here mostly to show,
Okay.
in the show ring. They were very beautiful, very successful, very athletic. And um, so now you need to be looking at pedigree. You need to be looking at the individual mare, the individual stallion, their individual race records, their individual produce. There's so many statistics now that you can look at and just like thoroughbreds, just look at the page
For sure.
and you get a feel for the whole picture. And I used to didn't have that luxury. I just looked at the horse and said, "Yep, that one looks good." Or now though, truly, pedigree makes a big difference. It
For
it,
sure.
it does. It has evolved to the point that it really does.
Excellent. Any
And of course,
characteristic?
conformation.
Sorry.
And, you can, it's like when I was in thoroughbreds, you go to Kentucky and look at all the finest stallions. And, it's amazing how many of them, some of the soundness appears to have been bred out of them.
Okay.
And, they don't last long. And the Arabians, they're just different.
Mhm.
They're sounder, they're people horses. They just are. I loved my thoroughbreds, but the Arabians are just have my heart. They always have.
Any specific characteristics in young prospects, that you're looking for and that have proven most indicative of, future racing success?
Truly, the aggressive ones.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Interesting.
and when you watch them, how they carry themselves when they're running in the field,
Sure.
just certain things that you just notice, their efficiency of motion
Hmm.
matters. Um, Interesting. Sometimes the boss in the field
Okay.
might not be as good as some of the others because they've never had to do anything. They're boss.
That's true.
I'm not saying that they won't, but I have had occasion to be very surprised when the boss didn't turn out to be the best.
Interesting.
And we have started to notice that sometimes because they are the boss, they they just don't think they actually have to do something. They're used to getting their own way.
That
They're
is
used to
funny.
getting their own way. I know that sounds really silly, but we have noticed that to be not on all of them now, but
Sure.
we do take notice of that anymore, because not saying we wouldn't still want the boss, don't misunderstand, because usually the boss is the boss because he's bigger, stronger, and more aggressive.
Sure.
So there's just no way to pinpoint anything. You just have to just look at all the sixth sense things, you know, just stuff that a lot of characteristics involved in the personality of the horse, and he's alive. And you know that they're gonna, especially with Arabians, my experience is they're gonna normally give you everything they've got if they understand what you want.
For sure.
So some have more to give than others, and that's where the heart comes in.
Excellent.
It's true, because some of the most talented, well-bred, you know, they can disappoint if they don't have the heart. Normally it comes through. It really does normally come through, especially in the mares. Especially in the mares. The aggressive mares, you know, those I would much prefer the aggressive mare than the aggressive colt. Because colts become aggressive when they get a chance. And mares
That's the difference.
might or might not, you know.
Sure.
But the one that is already, usually it stays kind of aggressive. But again, it can be spoiled too. So you just never know. You have to put the whole package together. And that's what makes it such a challenge, is you breed this full brothers and full sisters. Those two fillies are twins. And they're very much alike, but they're very different too.
For sure.
And I have many full siblings to, you know, over the years, many, especially in the line of Orty that produced Oration and produced Duran and produced many good racehorses, stakes horses. But yet Oration, he didn't really want to run fast, but he sure does like to be a show horse.